You book a flight months in advance. Everything is planned down to the minute. Hotel reservations are locked in. Time off work is approved. Maybe it's a long-awaited vacation or something even more important. A wedding, a reunion, a once-in-a-lifetime moment. Then suddenly, without warning, it appears on the departure board. Cancelled. Just one word, but it changes everything. The immediate assumption is simple. The airline must be losing money. After all, an empty plane means lost revenue, right? But the reality behind that single word is far more complicated and far more unsettling. Because in many cases, cancellations do not hurt airlines nearly as much as passengers believe. In fact, under certain conditions, they can quietly increase profits. Air travel today is one of the largest industries on the planet, moving billions of passengers every year and generating hundreds of billions of dollars in revenue. From sleek booking apps to carefully designed loyalty programs, everything about the experience feels optimized, almost effortless. But behind that polished surface lies a deeply complex system driven by data, probabilities, and financial strategy. Most people assume airlines make their money by selling tickets. And yes, that is true, but only partially. Because when you look closer at the numbers, something doesn't quite add up. Airlines often operate on razor-thin margins. In many cases, just a few % profit per flight. That means even small disruptions, fuel price changes, weather delays, staffing issues, can wipe out expected earnings. So the real question becomes unavoidable. If profits per flight are so tight, where do airlines actually make consistent money, especially when things go wrong? The first layer of this system begins with something that sounds risky, almost counterintuitive: overbooking. Airlines regularly sell more tickets than there are seats on a plane. At first glance, this seems like a mistake waiting to happen. But it isn't random. It is calculated with precision. Historical data shows that a percentage of passengers simply never show up. Plans change. Connections are missed. Emergencies happen, so airlines adjust. They oversell flights by anywhere between 5 to 15%, depending on the route and demand patterns. Most of the time, this works perfectly. The no-shows balance out the extra tickets sold. Planes leave full, maximizing revenue. But when more passengers show up than expected, the system reveals its edge. Volunteers are asked to give up their seats, often in exchange for compensation. And if that doesn't work, some passengers are denied boarding altogether. It sounds costly, but financially it often isn't. Paying compensation is usually cheaper than flying with empty seats. Now introduce cancellations into this equation and the system becomes even more efficient. When a flight is canceled, airlines can consolidate passengers onto fewer flights. Instead of operating multiple planes with scattered availability, they compress demand. Fewer flights mean lower costs. Less fuel, fewer crew hours, reduced airport fees. What appears to be operational chaos on the surface can actually streamline expenses behind the scenes. And this is where the narrative begins to shift. Because overbooking is not the real profit driver, it is only the foundation. The real leverage comes after disruption. Airlines do not just sell transportation. They sell flexibility, or more accurately, the lack of it. For years, fees tied to cancellations, changes, and rebookings have generated billions in revenue globally. Even though many airlines have introduced more flexible policies in recent years, the structure still remains. A large portion of tickets are either non-refundable or come with restrictions. When a passenger cancels, they often do not receive cash back. Instead, they get a credit. And those credits come with conditions. Expiration dates, limited usability, blackout periods. On paper, it feels like the value is preserved. But in reality, a significant percentage of these credits are never used. This is known in finance as breakage, and it represents pure profit. The airline keeps the money without ever providing the service. Think about that for a moment. A seat that was never occupied, a flight that never needed to accommodate that passenger, yet the revenue remains intact. From the traveler's perspective, it feels like a loss. From the airline's perspective, it is a completed transaction. And this is where perception and reality begin to diverge. You believe you are paying for a seat on a specific flight. But in many cases, what you are actually purchasing is a set of conditions that often favor the system over the individual. But the story does not stop there. Because cancellations trigger something much larger than individual ticket changes. They create a ripple effect across the entire airline ecosystem. And that ripple is where the real money begins to move. When a flight is canceled, passengers do not simply disappear. They re-enter the system. They search for alternatives. And more often than not, they rebook under pressure. Time-sensitive situations leave little room for flexibility. And this urgency feeds directly into dynamic pricing systems. Airline pricing is not fixed. It constantly adjusts based on demand, availability, and timing. When cancellations reduce the number of available seats on future flights, prices naturally rise. This is not always intentional manipulation. It is simply how the system is designed to respond, but the outcome is predictable. A passenger who originally booked a ticket weeks in advance at a lower price may suddenly find themselves paying significantly more for the same route after a cancellation. The difference can be substantial. And when multiplied across thousands of passengers, it becomes a powerful revenue stream. Add to this the layer of ancillary fees, baggage charges, seat selection, priority boarding, in-flight upgrades. These extras collectively generate tens of billions of dollars every year for airlines worldwide. And during disruptions, passengers are even more likely to purchase them. Imagine a traveler trying to reach an important family event. Their flight gets cancelled. The alternatives are limited. The pressure is high. They rebook at a higher price. They pay for baggage again. Maybe they upgrade their seat just to guarantee a spot on the next available flight. None of these decisions feel optional in that moment. The system does not need to exploit individuals deliberately. It simply operates in a way where urgency increases spending. And this leads to a broader realization. Airlines have not just built a system designed for smooth operations. They have built one designed to remain financially stable even when things go wrong. Cancellations, delays, no-shows, these are not just disruptions to be avoided. They are variables that the system is prepared to absorb and, in some cases, benefit from. That does not mean every cancellation is profitable. Airlines still face significant challenges. Fuel prices fluctuate unpredictably. Staffing shortages can disrupt schedules. Weather events can ground entire fleets. Safety regulations add layers of complexity and cost. Many cancellations are unavoidable and genuinely expensive. But the key insight lies in how the system is structured overall. Revenue in aviation does not rely solely on successful, uninterrupted flights. It also depends on how disruptions are managed. Over time, regulatory bodies in regions like the United States and the European Union have introduced rules aimed at protecting passengers, compensation requirements, refund policies, transparency obligations. These measures attempt to balance the equation. But even with these protections in place, the underlying economic structure remains intact. It is a system built on probabilities, behavior patterns, and financial optimization. And most passengers only ever see a small part of it. So the next time you are standing in an airport, staring at a departure board that suddenly flashes the word cancelled, it might feel like everything has fallen apart. Plans disrupted, time wasted, money lost. And in many ways, that feeling is justified. But behind the scenes, the system is still functioning exactly as designed. Planes are being reassigned. Passengers are being redistributed. Prices are being recalculated. Revenue streams are shifting in real time. The question is not whether cancellations are good or bad for airlines. The reality is more nuanced than that. The real question is whether a system that can sometimes profit from disruption should be allowed to operate this way, or whether stronger regulations should step in to redefine the balance between efficiency and fairness. Because at its core, this is not just about flights. It is about how modern systems are built. Systems that appear simple on the surface, but operate on layers of complexity underneath. Systems where the outcome you experience is not always the full story. So next time your travel plans fall apart, take a moment to look beyond the frustration. Because what feels like a breakdown might actually be part of a much larger design. And that leaves one question worth thinking about. Should airlines be allowed to profit from disruption, or is it time for the system to change? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you want to keep uncovering how global systems really work beneath the surface, subscribe for more deep dives like this.